What if you could hit the fast forward button on your body's own repair system? Or what if you could fine-tune your internal engine for absolute peak performance and a much longer, healthier life?
You know, these questions, they sound like something out of science fiction, don't they? But they're the very real promises of a field that's just exploding in health optimization. So today, we're going to dive deep into the world of peptides. And a big thanks to infinitypeptide.com for making this explainer possible.
Okay, so what in the world is a peptide? Well, in the simplest terms, it's a short little chain of amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. But their real power? That's in what they do. Think of them like tiny, super specific text messages. They zip around your body and deliver very precise instructions to your cells, telling them exactly what to do. Hey, start healing this tissue, or it's time to burn some fat, or let's calm down this inflammation. And here's something really cool. Unlike a lot of pharmaceuticals, when peptides break down, they just turn into basic materials your body already knows what to do with. That really helps minimize the risk of a whole bunch of unwanted side effects.
Let's kick things off with what is probably the most famous use for peptides: healing. I'm talking about those frustrating soft tissue injuries, sprains, strains, torn ligaments, that kind of stuff. Certain peptides have gotten this incredible reputation for creating almost superhuman recovery speeds. In fact, experts in the field actually call it the Wolverine healing protocol.
And when I say superhuman, I'm not kidding. We're not talking about a little 10 or 20% improvement here. With the right peptides, we're seeing the body's natural healing process accelerate by 7 to 10 times. Just think about that for a second. An injury that would normally sideline you for 4 to 6 months could potentially be healed in just 6 to 8 weeks. That is a total game changer, not just for pro athletes, but for literally anyone who's ever dealt with an injury that just won't go away.
So how does this magic actually work? Well, it usually comes down to a powerful 1-2 punch from a couple of key peptides. First up, you've got BPC-157. Its main job is to kickstart something called angiogenesis, which is just a fancy word for creating new blood vessels. This basically rushes all the repair materials right to the scene of the injury. Then, at the exact same time, you have TB500 working as this powerful anti-inflammatory, clearing out all the junk and the swelling, so BPC-157 has a clean workspace. They're a perfect team. One clears the path, and the other rebuilds the road. Now, it is really important to point out that most of these compounds are not FDA approved for these specific uses and kind of live in a regulatory gray area, often sold for research purposes only.
And the healing applications don't just stop at sprains and strains. Oh no, we're seeing GHK-Cu, which is also known as copper peptide, being used for amazing skin rejuvenation and even hair regrowth. There's thymosin alpha-1, which is a powerhouse for balancing the immune system, and new peptides are popping up all the time, like Cartilax, which, you guessed it, is showing some incredible promise for repairing and even regenerating cartilage.
Okay, but what if you're not injured? What if you're already feeling pretty good and you want to go from repair to optimization? Well, that brings us to our second huge category, using peptides for performance and longevity. This is all about getting under the hood and fine-tuning your body's systems, especially one of its absolute master hormones, growth hormone.
These guys are known as growth hormone agonists. And what that means is they don't replace your body's own growth hormone. Instead, they act like a gentle nudge to your pituitary gland, telling it to produce and release more of its own naturally. Tesamorelin is actually an FDA-approved peptide, and it's famous for its ability to target that stubborn, deep belly fat. Ipamorelin is probably the most studied of the bunch, and it's a favorite because it has the fewest side effects. And then for people looking for the maximum effect, there's CJC-1295. The goal with these? Better sleep, improved skin, fat loss, and even building some muscle, especially when you combine them with a healthy lifestyle.
And if we go even deeper, down to the cellular level, we find mitochondrial peptides. These work directly on your cell's little power plants. So you've got MOTS, which is especially good for people who are, as peptide expert Jake Campbell puts it, metabolically deranged. So think people who might be overweight and dealing with a lot of inflammation. It helps to just jumpstart their whole energy system. On the other hand, you have SS31. Think of this one more like an amplifier for people who are already in pretty good shape. It makes their cells more efficient and just makes all the other protocols they're on work even better.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. All of this sounds pretty incredible, almost revolutionary. So the big question is, why isn't this mainstream? Why hasn't your doctor ever mentioned any of this to you? Well, the answer really gets into a fundamental split in how we even think about healthcare.
It really boils down to two completely different paths. On one path, you have our conventional sick care system. It's almost entirely reactive. It waits for you to get sick, and then it manages your symptoms. It's largely driven by insurance companies and doctors who are trained to treat diseases, in part because these newer proactive tools just don't have the decades of large-scale studies that system requires. But then there's this other path, optimization healthcare. This approach is proactive, it's individual-led, and it's focused on enhancing your health, not just fixing you when you're broken. It mostly operates outside of the insurance world, and it really requires you, the individual, to be in the driver's seat of your own health.
And that really requires a huge mindset shift, right? It's about moving from being a passive patient to being an active participant. As peptide expert Jay Campbell says, the whole goal is to become the proactive scientist of your own health. It means you're the one doing the research, you're the one understanding the potential benefits and the risks, and ultimately, you're the one taking ownership of your own biology.
And all of this leads us to a much bigger question. As these incredible tools become more and more accessible, are we watching a massive shift in how we approach health and aging itself? Is this new path of self-optimization the future of personal health? That's a question for all of us to think about. A huge thank you to InfinityPeptides.com for helping us bring you this explainer.